Hey guys, it's Roderick. I'm here with the season finale of The Real Housewives of New Jersey, season 13, episode 14, Flappers or Fury, which actually this episode should be called Throwing Bones and Hiding Hands. So I was this close to bringing out the glasses today, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to break this episode down for you because there's a lot, but not too much that's going on. But needless to say, yes, I will be doing Teresa's wedding special and, of course, the 3-part reunion, which I'm sure we're going to have for this episode. But let's just get into this because I'm going to do this hibachi style because I'm just going to make a really quick, short order of this because it's a lot, but not too much that's going on. Okay, so first we start off with the dramatic 12 hours after the party. Melissa's on the phone with Dolores. She's like, oh, I don't think I'm going to go to the wedding. And of course, we're like, so what happened, right? Okay, so we get to Paulie's Irish Prohibition theme party, which, for the record, looked fantastic, styled, and to know that Paulie took charge of everything, that Dolores just had to show up and look beautiful, just adds more notches to the great things that we kind of like about Paulie or whatever like that, because the party looked really, really good. So, everyone's getting there, everyone's arriving, and, again, like, Bravo, and especially Jersey, does this where, they get to the party. Now, we know it's summertime, right? We know the sun doesn't set till, really late in summertime. But so they have this whole, daytime, they can't really control, when the sun is setting, when it's not. So you'll see, everyone's arriving, and it's daytime, but all of a sudden, the next scene is, pitch black dark, right? Which means that they've cut scenes from the daytime portion or the earlier lighted, daylight lit portion of the show to the really darker parts of the show, which kind of lets you know kind of how long it took for things to happen in the coverage. So anyway, that's a minor point, but Jersey's kind of very sloppy with that for some reason, which, I know you can't really control when the sun sets, but it just really, to the experienced viewer or people who know about filmmaking, you know that they really spent a whole really, 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 really long time at this party, right? Because again, sun was up, sun was down when they left, right? Anyway, I digress, right? So anyway, Rachel's, Danielle, everyone shows up, everyone's great, bop, bop, boop. Danielle and Rachel squash their beef, right? Which really was not a beef in and of itself, right? But we see what the core disconnect was between Danielle and Rachel, right? Because Rachel says, look, if our roles were reversed, you would have done the same thing. And Danielle goes, no, I wouldn't have done the same thing. Which I go, huh. Which is a very interesting point considering what happens later on in the episode. So, which I'm just kind of like, this just reeks of, again, production marionetting and Danielle. And I really, again, what I've talked about this season about the format of this show, with it being so conflict driven, that really everyone's more about kind of having these faux conflict driven moments as opposed to really authentically showing what's going on in your life, right? Because in the truth of the matter is, Danielle did exactly what Rachel Fuda did, right? And if you talk about what she ended up doing with Melissa, it was the exact same thing, right? You went and transmitted some information, and not so that you probably should have kept to yourself, right? I mean, that literally was the crux of her problem, was her issue with Rachel, right? So Danielle, I like her, and I cannot really figure out whether or not she's playing us or whether she's just really doing this naivete, Staten Island, I'm just doing a television thing. We're just going to have to put that on the table. I will come to a conclusion by the end of the reunion whether or not Danielle's been playing us this whole time, right? So anyway, so everyone's arrived, and I'm like, where's Teresa? Where's Louis? Why are they so late, right? So Teresa and Louis finally arrive. Louis snubs Joe just very obviously, and I don't know. I feel like if somebody tried to do that in my group of friends, right? Because clearly Joe is kind of like the ringleader of those group of guys. I would have been, hopefully my friends would have been feeling some sort of way. But we know people in this world are treacherous, and they really, people like, oh, fine, whatever, it wasn't nothing. But even when Frank was like, yeah, he was kind of short, I was like, how are you walking into a party with my boys, and then you go try to be short with me? It's not going to work. So, and Louis just really has kind of jumped in and like kind of settled into this whole house husband role that he's in, which kind of makes me feel some sort of way, but we'll get to that in a second. Anyway, so immediately Louis starts peddling already this Joe bullshit and his anti-Melissa, anti-Joe bullshit, and I'm just like, that's just not your place, right? Like Louis is just so out of pocket because Teresa, to her credit, which we'll get to, has not really said anything on camera bad to these women about Joe and Melissa. And she hasn't. She has literally utilized Louis, Jennifer Aydin, and Danielle to do all her talking. Because at the end of the day, Teresa's defense will be at the reunion, I never said anything bad. I did not do anything. And well, there's a quote she has in here that was like, oh, it never came out my mouth. Like, it's all about plausible deniability with Teresa, right? But the fact is that if people around you are doing things that you're not comfortable with, you put a stop to it, right? And at no point do we hear Teresa say to Louis, stop talking about my brother. Keep my brother's name out your mouth. Don't think you really know him. I don't think you have that situation wrong. She's dead silent, right? So it's kind of like that adage if someone comes to you and says, hey, such and such and such was talking about you. The first question out your mouth should be, well, what did you say, right? Because why should that person feel comfortable talking about me in front of you, right? So the fact is that at no point do we hear Teresa say anything, which leads us to the point about the boys, to the men. Literally, Bill Aydin says to Joe, I really think you need to have a conversation with your sister. These moments are really important. You don't want to miss this. You don't want to do this. Once again, the men are far more intelligent than the women because at no point on camera has anybody said to Teresa, not Danielle, not Jennifer Aydin, not Dolores. Nobody has said, you know what, Teresa, you really should start talking to Melissa. You really need to squash whatever this is going on. Bop, 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 boop. Nobody has said that to Teresa on camera. But here we have the men being like, bro, like, come on. Like, you just can't miss out her wedding. She's getting married, blah, 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 blah. Right? So it just shows the combination of the lack of emotional intelligence and the fear that Teresa has put into these women that don't be talking about me or having my name in your mouth or you're going to catch it, right? So that's why Teresa can kind of skate through with this plausible deniability, which I think actually besides throwing bones, it should be called plausible deniability because that's really what this is all about. It's about plausible deniability. So anyway, so now here we get to the fakest part of this entire episode, right? So Danielle goes up to Jennifer Aydin and says, I'm gonna tell Melissa what you said. And then Jennifer is like, no, don't do that. Well, don't put my mouth in it. So the thing is that then they start conspiring as to who they're going to tell Melissa the rumor came from, right? If you knew the rumor was okay to be true and you had no problem telling Danielle about it, then why not have your name attached to it? The fact is that you don't want Jennifer, like this, as a child of the 80s, I have been schooled by some of the best master manipulators and schemers known to television. J.R. Ewing, Angela Channing, Dominique Devereaux, right? Alexis Colby Carrington, Blanche Devereaux. Never would I thought that I would have to, in my life, add Teresa Gorga Rules to this list, but this entire scheme was set up by Teresa to take out Marge and Melissa, right? And the key is that you're going to see is that Marge ended up clearing the girls at the end, so Marge did not end up there was no strays that hit Marge, right? But the strays that hit Melissa took pretty much the brunt of this whole thing. But Marge came out good because Marge cleared the girls at the end, and it was fabulous. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, I was like, why does Jennifer Aydin not want her name attached to this, right? And tell me this, production, why do we not get a scene on camera where Jennifer Aydin goes to Teresa and tells Teresa, Danielle's about to tell Melissa? Right? See, when something big happens in life, right, and you want to know who knew the secret, look at the faces of the people when the secret comes out. At no time when this whole big secret comes out, do we see a shocked look on Teresa's face, Dolores's face, Everybody, the only people who did not know was Rachel Fuda, right? And Melissa. And maybe Jen Fessler, right? And because, but I'm sure Marge probably told her it was not anything. Though everybody else had heard about it. All the women had already knew or had heard about this rumor before it was exposed. So, and we'll get to this whole kind of timeline because we get a plot twist here, right? So Danielle ends up spilling the beans to Melissa, says anything, and Melissa then tells us that she knew about this rumor because Teresa called Joe to Joe's house take that back. Teresa called Joe, asked Joe to come to Teresa's house where Teresa tells the rumor. This is from Melissa, okay? And I go, Screech, excuse me, what? How did we miss this major point? Melissa already knew that this rumor was already out there in the ethos. Why did we not see this conversation on camera? We were led to believe prior for the past 13 episodes that Teresa and Joe have not had any communication. They've had all this acrimony, but they've had conversations at their house. If you're going to have a conversation at your house about your wife cheating on you, wouldn't that be a good time to have a conversation about all the other bullshit going on in our relationship? Wouldn't that be a good time for us to be like, yo, okay, if this is between filming, I don't want there to be no bullshit during this season when we're filming. Why don't we just make everything good? Would that not have been a good time? And would that not have been a good time for production to be there? So once again, this is one of the biggest criticisms with this now, with kind of the state of reality television, that you now have talent trying to be producers, right? And I don't watch the Real Housewives of Potomac, so I can't really speak on that. But from what I've heard in the internet streets and on the Twitter streets, you pretty much have the same thing. So pretty much now, instead of people showing up and authentically exposing their lives, their failings, their hopes, their dreams, their successes, their miscomings, and all the things that kind of go into being whatever this is, you have talent and the cast conspiring and putting together storylines or faux conflict that they're going to insert into the filming to make that be something to obfuscate whatever else is going on in their lives, right? So it ends up being a smokescreen, because if I can put up a fake story or a fake fight or something that happened 6 months ago that I now bring to camera, then I don't have to show up and show what's really going on in my life. And the fact is, it might just be that these women's lives are so great that they don't have any major problems. Or it may just be that maybe we need to find out some more people who are at a different stage of their lives where they have more interesting things to show, right? These may be difficult conversations that production and management needs to have, but it is not the role of cast members to show up and to insert faux drama and make it seem as if it is real and have production kind of go along with this kabuki theater for 13 episodes. So we find out that everyone has already known about this rumor, and then we find out that it was not Teresa who called Joe, it was Louis who called Joe. So was this before or after Pizzagate, right? So we know that this happened 6 months, they're in the summertime, we're gonna say, so this conversation happened sometime in winter, or whatever like that. This is something us as viewers who are watching this, who are thinking that we're seeing in like a little peephole into their lives. This is faux. Like, this is all fake. So I was just like, what? So now I'm just like, okay, so now Melissa's like, so now I understand why Melissa's upset, right? So Melissa's thinking to herself, and I'm sure that either it was tacitly said or explicitly said, right? Well, we're not going to bring this up on camera, right? So it looks as if, so Teresa can say, we had this conversation while we're not filming, so that way this doesn't come up on camera. Joe and Melissa go, whew, good, okay, great. Then we find out, so now Melissa's like, great, whatever. So then what Teresa does, right, and to ensure it comes up on camera, to ensure Melissa catches strays, and to get Margaret, is that she then has a fake phone call with Laura, okay? Now, I'm going to assume that Jennifer Aydin and I'm sure she told Jennifer Aydin exactly what the plan was. Like, look, I got this tea on Melissa. I told Melissa and Joe, I'm not going to be the one to put it out there. You're going to have to get this out to somebody. We got 2 new girls coming. You're going to have to figure out which of these 2 new girls we're going to plant this with, and then they're going to have to tell them what's going to happen, right? So Teresa calls up Laura, who originated the rumor, because now we know that Teresa heard the rumor before her and Laura had the phone call. So Teresa had independently heard this rumor already, okay? So she goes, ooh, that Laura girl, she's heard the rumor. So she calls Laura, they have a conversation, right, with Jennifer Aydin that is not on camera, that Teresa says to production, I cannot have my name involved in this, right? Because it's all about plausible deniability, right? So the conversation occurs, again, off camera. We hear what the conversation was. Now Teresa and Jennifer Aydin has to find their mole. It's either going to be Rachel Fuda or it's going to be Marge, right? So now they kind of suss out who's it going to be. They're like, they say, no, it's going to either be Danielle or Rachel Fuda, right? So like, then they're trying to suss out who's going to be our carrier pigeon? Who's going to be our kind of transport for this to happen? They decide it's going to be Danielle, because the fact is that those two are those are the only two people who aren't on the side, right? And then now it's looking like Rachel Fuda, who's a little bit too smart for being someone's patsy, is like, ooh, we could do Danielle. So then they start seeding it with Danielle about the whole situation, right? With the have to be careful of Marge, she might have an arsenal, right? So then when the fight comes with Danielle and Rachel Fuda, right? Then Teresa and Jennifer Aydin are like, that's our girl, okay? So they plant this rumor now with Danielle. Danielle's like, oh fuck, now Danielle is taken aside, right? Which is what production wanted anyway. So now Danielle has to transmit this information. So Danielle's thing is, well, I can blame this all on Marge, because Marge is the one who put this out there. When the truth of the matter is, Marge has yet to say anything. Marge never repeated the rumor. Jennifer Aydin repeated the rumor. You repeated the rumor. Marge never repeated it. Because as Melissa said in the couch, Marge didn't repeat this because she knows it's not true. So I was just like, oh, okay. So, and which kind of mystifies me with Danielle, because she's going around screaming about Marge and why is everything being deflected from Marge, when the fact is Marge never repeated the rumor. We don't even hear Marge repeat the rumor on the episode, right? It's Danielle who's repeating the rumor. So all hell ends up breaking loose. Melissa confronts Teresa. Teresa's acting like at no point, right? So Teresa goes, wow. At no point does Teresa go, that's not true. That's not what had happened. You know this is not what I wanted to do. I'm so sorry. I don't know how this happened. There is not a genuflect at all from Teresa as opposed to like, oh my God, what are you talking about? Who told you this? Where did this come from? I thought Joe and I had this conversation over, 6 months ago. I thought it was intimate. None of that comes out of Teresa's mouth. Teresa immediately now instinctively takes the victim role because Melissa is upset with her, and Teresa can 100% say, what's her quote? I never repeated anything to anyone. Because she didn't. Teresa had Laura tell Jennifer Aydin, right? Teresa never repeated anything to anyone on camera. So Teresa's whole posture is, I didn't do this. This didn't come from me. I don't know how this happened. When you literally set this up step by step, line by line, for this all to happen, because this killed two birds with one stone. It got back up Marge from last season. Jennifer Aydin had her knife to grab at Marge, and Teresa ain't gonna miss an opportunity to stick it to Melissa. And this was too good to be true. Because the truth of the matter is, right? If this occurred before taping or in between, Teresa has enough pull and enough clout at Bravo. She could have called somebody like, yo, I need some cameras at my house today by 6 o'clock. And somebody from Bravo would have shown up in New Jersey like, look, this is too good. I don't want y'all to miss this. And the season could have started with 6 months ago, Teresa talking to Joe about what happened or whatever. But she didn't want to do that, right? Because she knew that her brother would probably dead ass never talk to her again if she tried any more stunts talking and throwing dirt on his wife's name, right? So Teresa's like, fine, I won't say anything. I want to do this off camera. And she just set this up to have this whole thing blow up in Melissa's face, because it also accomplishes that Teresa has the wedding. That's fine, but the producers are going to be like, girl, we ain't spending all this money for this whole thing to be about your wedding. You got to get in the mud like everything everything else. So she had to have this because, again, it's all about plausible deniability, right? So then as all the ruckus is going on and everything is happening, right? Jennifer Aydin decides that she's going to jump in and get rah-rah with Marge. And Marge cleared the dog fuck out of her. Marge cleared her so fast and so quick, I guffawed, rewound, watched it again, and guffawed. Because the whole point of this was to hit Marge too, and nothing is sticking to Marge. Marge is like, I don't know why y'all talking to this bitch. I told you she was treacherous. Why are y'all still talking to her? And they're trying to get everything stick to Marge, and Jennifer Aydin is like, it's your fault. My daughter wants to be a therapist because of you. And Marge goes, nah, bitch. Your daughter wants to be a therapist because your husband fucked one of his subordinates. And that cleared Jennifer Aydin out. Because once again, we don't know all the details of who the woman was, what the situation was. It made it seem like it was somebody Bill picked up at a bar or something like that. But now we find out it's a subordinate that he probably was fucking for a whole long times or whatever. So then Jennifer Aydin goes, that cleared her, and Jennifer Aydin's like, she threw herself at him, and whatever. And Marge was like, and you know what? I understand. I know there are people out there who don't like Marge, right? And Marge is okay for me. I like her. She's okay. I mean, I won't say I take her or leave her because she kind of leans more on the plus than the negative. But Marge's mouth is lethal. It is lethal, and that is why the girls do not tangle with Marge. Because you know what? Marge does not ever, whereas Dolores will fuck a bitch up and just end up drag dog walking you out, Marge will do that with her mouth. And the girls don't want to play, right, with Marge, because she will just clear you very, very fast and quick. As we saw, with Jennifer Aydin, that fight she got it with Jennifer Aydin earlier in the season, and Jim Festival was like, girl, now you know you did too much. And Marge was like, I know. So Marge's mouth is just really lethal. And as a person that has a very lethal mouth as well, I understand the struggles of sometimes you just got to keep your mouth quiet and let people just go whatever. But there's a point when people decide to get rah-rah with you too much, and that person knows you need to stay the fuck out my orbit, that you just got to clear them in one sentence. She cleared her in one sentence. This was not a full, she read one sentence out of a book, out of the library, that sent Jennifer Aydin off downstairs crying, whatever. So I was just like, girl, you picked the right one. You picked the right one, because actually you picked the wrong one, because Marge was not the one. She wasn't the one, she wasn't the twin, she wasn't even the clone. So I was just like, girl, that's what you get. So then I was just like, now Louis decides that he wants to have some smoke with Joe because he's going back and forth and cha-chaing it with Melissa. And I was just like, why are you arguing with Melissa? Again, Louis just has inserted himself in so many parts of Teresa's life in this conflict that it just seems so abnormal. This would be something that as a fiance, I'd be like, girl, you gotta work it out however you wanna work it out. If, I'm here for you, I'm listening, I will tell you what I think. But he has just really inserted himself to know that it was Louis' idea to call Joe and not Teresa's. Just reeks of the fact of one of two things. And I think both these things can be true. Louis wanted to has inserted himself so much in Teresa's life, right? And that Teresa also has so much emotional exhaustion from this conflict with Joe. She's like, I don't care, whatever. And it also then takes the heat off of her so that she can have what? Plausible deniability, right? So then I was just like, what? And I don't know. And then to find out that Gia called Joe, Gia calls her uncle to say, we think that you would be better off without your wife, who you've been married for how many years? 14 years? This is what I said about Teresa's children getting in grown people's business. Because if Joe had then gotten in his car, drove over to Teresa's house and cursed that little girl out, and she's not even a little girl because she's 20-something, so she's technically a woman, she would have deserved every cursing and lashing and tongue lashing from her uncle, because I could never think, even if I had an aunt who I don't think my uncle should be married to, I would never turn my lips, curl my fingers, get on my iPhone and call them, be like, I think you should be better happy. No, so out of pocket. And the reason she's out of pocket is because her mother lets her be out of pocket. Because she sits in at home with her mother who talks cash money shit about her uncle and has no respect for him. That's why she was able to say the greasy ass shit she did last season. And that's why she could pick up the phone and call her uncle and say greasy ass shit now. And there's nobody's gonna tell me that calling your uncle and telling him that he should divorce his wife is an acceptable phone call to make in the absence of some kind of physical abuse or criminality. Keep it all the way 100. I'm not doing that. So anyway, I was going to let Dolores have it because I was really not happy with the way Dolores is trying to... Dolores isn't playing defense. I think everybody knows whose side Dolores is on, right? And so Dolores calling Melissa, being like, oh, I'm so sorry for what happened. What are you going to do now? Whatever. Like, girl, what do you think you're going to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to say this is Dolores' fault or whatever. I just feel like, I take that back. I do feel like Dolores should have been on camera more counseling Teresa against such rash actions, right? Because again, we don't get any surprises like, girl, what happened? At no point when Teresa sees Jennifer Aydin and Teresa at Teresa's house, and she's like, okay, tell me again how this happened. Who called Laura? Who told who? Who told Danielle? At no point is Dolores Carmen Sandiegoing this whole situation out as a good friend who did not know about it, right? But I'm sure as soon as if Teresa called Joe to tell Joe, I'm sure Teresa told Dolores. Right? So Dolores should have done a better acting job of, okay, girls, what happened here? How did this happen? But Dolores is just like, here we go with this bullshit again, which is fine because she has her own life and her own happiness. And I'm not saying she should have inserted herself in Teresa's problems. I just think that she just should be counseling Teresa upon not to follow her worst instincts, right? So anyway, then we get, the ending part. And then Louis shows up while Jennifer Aydin and Dolores are at the house saying that he had investigators on everybody. Girl, I almost threw my phone up against the wall. I was like, what? Why are you having people on the cast investigated? I understand. Okay, let's say I take that back. I can understand why. Why would you ever say that out loud? Why would you ever say that out loud, that you're having people investigated and you have files on people? Like, really? Like, I don't know. This is just a mess. I mean, this whole Battle of the Gorgas has just been one disappointing, conflated mess. And I don't know, like, and I this day of the wedding, and then we're gonna have this reunion, and I understand how I can understand Dolores saying, like, this is just hurtful. Like, this is hurtful on everyone's circumstance, and it's not going to get any better because nobody wants to bow out because now their identity and their income is attached to this franchise and this show, and that is more important than family, right? No matter what anyone says, and let me be clear for people who want to jump in the comments, Joe and Melissa are not blameless. And if you watch all my videos, I have said that Joe and Melissa are not blameless in this. Everyone has played a very significant part in this mess. So I am not saying that at all, but this conflict is between Teresa and her brother. And Melissa and Louis need to take 15 steps back and let them figure this out. And that has been my song all season long on the Battle of the Gorgas. So anyway, thanks, guys. I'll see you next week for this wedding fiasco shenanigans that were going to happen, and then for the reunion. So anyway, thanks. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.